Republican Congressman Keith Self of McKinney, thank you so much and welcome back to Eye on Politics.
Thanks for having me, Jack.
How concerned are you that there is going to be a government shutdown next week if Senate and House can't come together?
Well, it's not the Senate and the House in this case. It is Chuck Schumer. The decision is his as to whether or not he's going to support the CR that the House passed. We did our job. We sent it to the Senate. Whether or not he decides for the Democrats to support it. It's 100% Chuck Schumer.
Now, you voted for the continuing resolution this time. Why?
Well, it is a clean CR, and it has a little bit of additional money for security for the House, legislative branch, the Supreme Court, and the executive branch. But it is a clean CR, and it keeps the funding flat going back to 2024. So that's why I voted for it, because that's what we need to do, is to draw spending down.
And the fact that, when we talk about a clean CR, you know what that is, but how would you explain a clean bill?
A clean CR, a clean bill, doesn't add a bunch of policy or spending. So that's the key. Well, we want it to be as close to flat because we need to get back to pre-COVID spending. Now, this doesn't get back that far, but it does take us back to, I think, FY 2024. So if you can cut out all the built-in increases that we have in the government, that's a real win. So this would be a win for the American taxpayer if we can keep spending flat.
And when you say flat, you actually mean flat, no built-in increase at all.
That's correct. There are a few anomalies. The security anomaly, yes, I just talked about.
Right.
But that's an anomaly. The basic government funding is flat.
So one of the issues that Democrats have raised is about health care and making permanent the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare subsidies for people to have health policies. And it would, at last I read, it would be about $335 billion over 10 years, so 33.5 per year. What do you say about that?
Well, I say, first of all, let's review what you just said. COVID era, temporary, subsidies meant for the COVID era. So this is start out about $40 billion a year. So COVID's been over for years now. Temporary has been over for years now. No Republican has ever voted for an Obamacare subsidy. Why would any Republican vote for this when it's COVID era, temporary subsidies? And here's the real kicker. We have insurance companies paying, we have the federal government paying insurance companies when there have been no claims. This is a scam that's been going on since the COVID era. And I will tell you, this makes absolutely no sense. Now, I will tell you the insurance companies are probably going to try to scare people and jack up their premiums because the premium letters will go out in October sometime. Open enrollment opens on 1 November. So they will try to scare people into, the insurance companies will try to scare people into telling us to pass these subsidies. But once again, these were COVID era subsidies meant for that era, and they were meant to be temporary. They expire at the end of the year. They need to expire. We do not need to continue the scam of federal dollars going to the insurance companies when there are no claims. In some cases.
And what do you mean there are no claims?
Well, some people don't even know they're on the program. They went to the grocery store and somebody said, "Do you want to sign up for the program?" "Sure, here's my information." They don't even know they're on it. They've never submitted a claim, an insurance claim, and yet the federal government is paying insurance companies money. And that's part of this $40 billion a year that we're talking about.
Now, is that in a document anywhere as far as like documented number of people who are not claiming, not making claims, like out of all the policies?
Not exactly, but when you look at the charts,
okay,
the income from $100 to $150,000 is where most of the fraud is occurring, because that's where the people don't even know that they're on the program. That's where most of them are. That's where I would call fraud is happening. That's where the federal government, again, is paying insurance companies where there are no claims.
Now, I've seen reports and that even President Trump's pollster said that hey, this is a concern, this could be a concern to Republicans because, to your point, the premiums are going to rise for people, and it comes at a time where people are not happy that while even though inflation has come down from the record highs that we saw during the Biden administration, prices haven't fallen. So people are going to be hit with higher premiums, more costs on health, which could hurt President Trump, which could hurt Republicans in next year's midterm elections. What do you say about that?
I say that we ought to look at the program. There is no reason for any Republican to vote for these subsidies. The subsidies were artificial in the beginning. They're artificial today. This is a scam in many cases where the government is paying the insurance companies. That's where the timing of this CR comes in. We just passed a continuing resolution through November 21st. As I said, open enrollment starts on 1 November. The pressure to pass these subsidies will be substantial. That's where Republicans need to hold the line, because somebody's going to be paying for this. Now, if we pass these subsidies, the federal government will continue to pay these $40 billion in subsidies every year over 10 years. With churn, it's $335 billion, as you said. But if we fix the system now, we can start controlling those costs, because the insurance companies will then realize they can't just increase the premiums like they would like to, because the federal government's not going to participate in their scam. So that would be the right way to do it.
And what do you say to people who say, you know, I'm just worried about my costs going up. I can't afford it. What do you say?
It is a real concern, but healthcare costs are the major driver of the federal debt today. We are $37 trillion. That's $37,000 billion in debt in this government. Why would we continue to dig the hole? Let's stop digging the hole. Let's fix the system, have the insurance companies actually charge the premiums that they can on the open market that people will accept, rather than the federal government just continuing to shovel money at the insurance companies. This is insurance company driven. Make no mistake about it.
So it's the insurance companies pressuring not only Congress, but also pushing the public.
Absolutely. We need to fix the system rather than just continuing to do what drives us further and further into debt.
And what has Speaker Johnson said about this that you're aware of?
He has said that we're not going to, and first of all, Speaker Johnson didn't have it in this CR. It's kudos to the Speaker.
Left to be discussed outside of this.
Yet to be discussed, that's correct. That's what he said.
So let me ask you also about Charlie Kirk, the conservative activist who was assassinated. And you mentioned it even before, as far as having to increase security for members of Congress, the executive branch, and the courts. How concerned are you about, you know, the political violence that we've seen?
Well, political violence is not acceptable, period. But we live in a very divided country, and we need to start ratcheting down the verbiage and just the vitriol. But I'm concerned for some people. I live in a fairly safe area. Anything can happen, and you can always be at the wrong time, wrong place at the wrong time. That can happen. But there are people that are legitimately concerned about their security. They live in areas that might be more problematic than I do, and I understand their concerns. But at the same time, some people are throwing around numbers that we simply cannot sustain. We cannot sustain hundreds of thousands of dollars for every member to purchase security. We've got to have some level of reasonableness, and then we've got to take responsibility for our own security, being watchful and careful.
And as far as Kirk's legacy, there's been a lot of discussion about that. What do you think it will be?
Well, I think it will be that he was a man of courage, of his convictions, of his faith. And frankly, government will not save America. It will take a revival, a spiritual revival amongst the people, so that we can do, as we just said, to take the vitriol down, to allow us to have conversations that are reasonable and calm about our differences, because we will continue to have differences. But Charlie Kirk was very open with his faith, And frankly, you know, the calls from the left to calm this down. They shot the man that was having very calm, very reasoned discussions with anyone. He could debate with anyone. He had such an active mind, such a quick response that people enjoyed debating him. But they shot the man that was willing to have those conversations that now they're saying we should have.
And everybody always says, you know, lower the temperature. We hear that for a while and then it goes back. And then nothing, you know, it just keeps happening. What do you say about that?
Well, this is the revival that I think we need to have.
So you think things will change?
I certainly hope so. There seems to be a movement growing. That's exactly what we need to happen. And frankly, Charlie reached the younger generations. And reaching the younger generations is where it's got to happen, because those are the future of our nation. Those citizens are the future of our country. They are the ones that are going to be able to tamp it down as they rotate into leadership.
I was curious what you thought about, there was a lot of controversy last week about the FCC commissioner making comments about Jimmy Kimmel's remarks on his late night show and suggesting even, you know, raising the specter of stations and their licenses with the FCC. And I know Senator Cruz came out late last week and basically he shut that down. He sharply criticized the FCC commissioner for making those comments. What do you make of all this?
Well, frankly, there's a 1920s law that gives the FCC the responsibility to govern what is speech on broadcast. So we're acting under a 100-year-old law that the government does have that responsibility. And frankly, I think that's why podcasters, internet streaming are so popular today, because they're not governed under the same law. So while we look at it as free speech, that would be a congressional act to change the law if we want to have unfettered free speech on broadcast. So you have to separate broadcast from internet streaming, podcasts, that sort of thing.
I was just going to ask you about that, because I've heard a lot of people say that the FCC's rules and, you know, governing over speech on broadcasts are outdated, because you have the internet, because you have, you know, podcasts, and because you have cable, which is not regulated by the FCC. Is that something you would support, making broadcast equal to everybody else out there doing content?
Well, I think this is the way you'd have to handle it. Section 230 that gives limited liability. So if you're going to free up, and we're talking streaming internet now, if you're going to give unlimited liability, then the responsibility is going to fall on the person saying the words. So then you go back to your slander and libel laws. If you put something as an individual, not me as an elected official, but an individual put something on the internet, then they might be liable for slander or libel. So
aren't they all already? I mean, that's already something.
Now we consider that change would have to be every internet is simply a pipe. So the responsibility then goes to the person. So it would be more liable for your speech if it was a public utility or simply a communications pipe. So that would be one way to handle it.
And so, I mean, do you think it's outdated? In other words, because it is 100 years old, the fact that there are so many different platforms that people speak on, et cetera, is this really outdated?
Well, I think that's something Congress ought to look at, absolutely. A 100-year-old law for communications. Think about what's happened in the last 100 years. I mean, we can't even begin to name all the changes.
Right.
So absolutely, I think it's absolutely reasonable for Congress to take a look at that law to see what needs to be updated. If they're going to be treated the same, whatever the outcome is, we need to look at it.
Now, there were also an effort several years ago, I think by Democrats, to bring cable under the same rules as the FCC, as broadcast for the FCC. Would you support that?
I'm not going to commit to anything. I think we need to look at how do we level the playing field, because even cable now is, kind of outdated in and of itself. So, so let's look at the entire spectrum, because communications is moving fast.
Also wanted to ask you about, we've talked about foreign policy before, and now we've seen four nations, well, France will, but England, Australia, and Canada say they are going to recognize a Palestinian state. Where do you fall on that?
There is no state of Palestine to recognize. There never has been, and there is not now. This is some sort of virtue signaling by these countries. I do not understand it, because when you go to Israel and Gaza, Hamas, and frankly, a lot of the Arab world, Muslim Arab world today, there is no path forward for a two-state solution. It does not exist. So you can go back into history and talk about the two states that there were. And frankly, one of the arguments is Gaza was the second state, Palestinian state. And look how they ruined it and ruled it, taking the humanitarian supplies, using the humanitarian money to build tunnels. I mean, on and on and on. So the two-state solution means the destruction of Israel, because that's exactly what they mean. The right of return, there are so many issues here. The right of return, what would be the second state? But no, it's a figment of their imagination. It is simply virtue signaling by those countries. And frankly, that was one of the goals of Hamas when they started October the 7th. We want to gain recognition around the world with these weak countries.
Is there any other issue you are focused on right now very closely in your office up in Congress?
Well, it's always the debt and the deficit, the $37 trillion. And I will tell you, Schumer's demands for this continuing resolution, he wants to basically undo the one big beautiful bill. He wants to reinstate everything, the $1.5 trillion, the Medicaid fraud, waste, and abuse that we cut out, the rescissions package, even outside of the one big beautiful bill, the working family tax cut bill. So that's what he wants to do. He wants to reinstate all of that. He wants to basically do away with the working families tax cut bill.
And the rescissions was what, more than $9 billion?
Was $9 billion.
Now, is there going to be a second reconciliation bill, a second quote-unquote one big beautiful bill?
That is in discussions. There are people that think we can. There are people that think we cannot. The issue here is, what is the driving issue? Last time it was the tax cuts that had to be extended. That was the driving issue that made it possible.
Yeah.
So in my mind, what is the driving issue that would demand that we get to a second reconciliation package?
And what is it?
I don't know. There are several ideas out there. They're working on several. I won't try to lay them all out, but yes, they're trying to find that issue that would be so important that it would drive it forward.
Is that something you would support?
It depends. It depends. There are those of the opinion that anytime you have a second reconciliation package, it's where the moderates get to load everything up on the plate. I would not support that. I would support something if we continue to attack the bloat in the government, the federal government. If we could do that, absolutely I would support it. I won't support just throwing everyone's wish list on the table.
I did have one other question to ask you about, since we're talking about debt, et cetera. There was a report by the Congressional Budget Office recently that said if the tariffs continue the way they are, that it will bring in more than $3 trillion in revenue to the federal government over a 10-year period. And that impact would be able to lower, I guess, it would be able to lower interest rates by $700 billion or something like that, or debt reduction, et cetera.
Right.
When you saw that, what was your reaction? Because what we've heard is a lot of angst over these tariffs, tax increases on imports. So where are you on all that?
Well, that's exactly what is hoped, that the economy would start rolling because of the working family tax cut bill and the tariffs. But there's going to be, even the president admitted, there would be short-term pain as we adjust to the new reality. So if the CBO report is right and we do bring in $3 trillion, it would do exactly that. It would lower the interest payments We would have more money in the budget to either cut or spend on large infrastructure projects, whatever. And it would lower the cost to the American tax-paying family. So all of that has yet to be realized, but that was the hope from the beginning, that the tax cuts and the tariffs would eventually, once we got through the short-term pain, readjust the playing field. Now, the tariffs are also they're the initial result of the income is the initial result of the tariffs. Over the long term, we want to bring manufacturing and good-paying jobs back to the United States because of that. Right now, people are paying for the tariffs over other countries. But once they realize, why don't we just move our manufacturing to the United States and manufacture there? It would be cheaper for us, and it opens up the U.S. market. So that's the long-term goal. So the income is only the short-term goal.
But when would we start seeing the impact of this, do you think?
Oh, probably 5 years for
So
the
this is a long-
manufacturing.
right.
The manufacturing might be 5 years.
But even, with the tax cuts that you discussed
Right.
and with the revenues from the tariffs, you're talking about, if I hear you correctly, a restructuring of the economy in a sense, right? Because the tariffs, it changes things, right? They're designed to bring companies to come back in and manufacturing, et cetera. And you said 5 years you think that would be, right? Give or take?
Well, yes, because we have a service economy today. We know it. Most manufacturing has gone overseas. So if we're going to bring it back, we're going to reorient the economy, as you said, toward a more even balance between service and manufacturing. And that would be beneficial to, one, our tax codes, two, our working tax-paying families, and interest rates, because the income will again help us to pay less on interest.
Congressman Keith Self of McKinney, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jack.
We appreciate it.